if you wanna, like, begin the topic and we can judge on the recording, that's fine as well. If you do, I'm gonna start the introduction. Do you agree with that?
Sure.
Alright. So, I'm gonna need you to mute yourself while I do this intro. Alright, thank you. So, the debate is between me, Divinity, and Shin. The topic is gonna be whether his verdict he gave for my debate with Ryomeguna is going to be valid or not. I'm going to be taking the position that it is not valid, and he's going to be taking the position that it is valid. We haven't agreed to a moderator as of this point, as it's in a GC with basically him not agreeing to a neutral server. But our judge is going to be Ryu, agreed upon on both sides. Now, there are stipulations as to the start of this topic. We'll be doing talk and sick. Alright? We haven't decided on a time limit. But if he cuts me off, or if I cut him off, there will naturally be a sort of violation of that stipulation. Do you agree with that stipulation, first of all, Shin?
Sure.
Alright.
And also our conditions of your preconditions that if you're somehow kicked in any way, shape, or form, that will be a concession in my part.
Agreed. Right, thank you. So that was the second stipulation. He said it for me. If I'm kicked in any way, naturally he's going to be conceding. Now, because we haven't agreed on any time limit, I believe I can read out your verdict, and then I'm going to be starting with my contentions on it. Is that fine with you?
Absolutely.
Alright. So, I'm not really going to go into the actual formalities of the verdict, we could just go into the reasoning directly. He said Divinity went red herring and posited fallacies, such as hollow man fallacy in the debate. He thought he was cooking when he thought arguing for an irrelevant point that Ryomeguna's definition is inherently incoherent. An informal definition still counts as a definition, therefore, he provided a definition which fulfills his position. Divinity, not realizing this, made a dumb fuck blunder. Tedious debate. Ryomeguna badly slammed. Also, those voice messages are genuinely gross, and how did this even get to 20-ish? 3 verdicts, 30 verdicts for your account, but alright. Where's the formality? I mean, I would have done this in VC, but like, naturally the guy doesn't really have a mic. Score. Literally what he said, by the way. The premise is also subjectivism based off of Ryomeguna's perception, therefore, if he posits any informal definition, Divinity cannot contend to this. The premise from the get-go is in no difficulty, quite literally once he mentions any sort of definition inside that corresponds to the word position, who thought debating a subjectivism premise, just quick correction here, would be a subjectivist premise, is a good idea, and how the fuck are there judges saying otherwise despite this? Fair enough, I guess. You would think that other judges are retarded because you believe in your position. Holy shit, are any of you even tracking? I'm not gonna respond to any of this, to be honest. Incredibly disgusting bias of stupid judges, blah 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 blah. I think we've read enough here. Now, to start my contentions. Shin, the fundamental problem with your verdict is that it just genuinely mistakes the object of my challenge. You do understand that I was never actually challenging whether Ryomeguna produced a sentence that resembled a definition at the most superficial level, right? I just went against whether the alleged definition he'd given had the right sort of semantic content to count as a definition of the term position in the sense that was relative to our topic. Naturally, having a position isn't going to be exhausted by just uttering a candidate definition, because a person can offer a string of words as a definition while that string would fail to perform the function of definition. Like, the entire debate, at least from my side, was about that failure of function. A definition isn't just any explanatory phrase attached to a word. I hope you do understand that a definition is supposed to fix or clarify the intention of a term, meaning the conditions in virtue of which the term would apply. Like, naturally, from that intention, we can determine the extension, the class of things that fall under the concept. Like, if somebody claims to define a position, the question I would ask them wouldn't really be whether he used the phrase, a position is, or whether he gave some informal paraphrase. Naturally, it's going to be trivial. But I would ask him, did his definition give us application conditions for the definiendum? Like, that is the disagreement. You do know that, right? Your verdict doesn't answer what I put into question at all. And you're actively presupposing that my contention on the adequacy of the definition means that I'd gone off topic, when the adequacy of the definition was the exact topic. If the topic concerns whether a person has a definition, then the coherence, determinacy, and, say, boundary setting power of that definition aren't gonna be off topic, they're core evaluative criterions. As for your point about informality, because you loved mentioning that. Like, that is certainly not the same as adequacy. An informal definition can be perfectly acceptable if it succeeds in fixing the relevant concept. I'm going to give you an example so you understand what I mean. Say we have the definition, a bachelor is an unmarried man. We're going to say that this is going to be an informal definition. It would still be doing real definitional work because it gives us a stable criterion. But again, a bachelor is a guy with relationship-related stuff. It's also just as informal. But it's useless because it doesn't distinguish bachelors from husbands or boyfriends or widowers or fucking single men, etc., etc. Like, does this wording delimit the concept? Your verdict seems to say that informality is just gonna immunize the definition from scrutiny, but it most definitely and certainly doesn't. As an informal definition still has to define. Also, I wanna clarify on one thing here. My contentions on that topic were on the meta level, because Ryomeguna's alleged definition made a first-order claim about what a position is. But my response was a meta-level critique of the conditions under which that first-order claim could count as a definition. And obviously that's not a red herring. That's something we would call meta-linguistic analysis. Like, I wasn't really changing the topic to something irrelevant. I was only asking him what semantic role the word position was actually supposed to play, what kind of object it refers to, and honestly, most importantly, what distinguishes its correct application from its incorrect application. Because a position isn't obviously a simple object. It's going to be a term that is very conceptually loaded, we can say. As a position may involve a certain proposition, or while not being identical to said proposition, it may be expressed by, an assertion. But it still isn't going to be identical to that assertion. It may correspond to a belief, but it's not going to be identical to the belief. It may involve a claim, and not every claim is a position, naturally. A position may give you some sort of dialectical commitment, and then you would need to know what sort of commitment and in what context. And then there's even more to fucking talk about. We call these things individuation problems, and they concern what kind of thing a position is, and how we count one position as the same as or different from another. Like, suppose someone says some people believe X. Obviously, that's going to be a claim. It's true fact and related to X, but it isn't going to be necessarily the speaker's position on X, as it's more so a report about other people's beliefs. And also, let's assume X for the sake of the argument. I think you understand what that means. It's obviously invoking X, and may involve some sort of propositional content, but it isn't necessarily the speaker's position, as it's going to be a hypothetical assumption. My opponent claims X, etc., etc., it's all the same thing. Now, obviously, there are counterexamples testing the extension of the proposed definition that's going to be giving, which is what I just told you. Like, I'm unsure if you're used to these sorts of topics, man. But you do know that that is a very standard sort of conceptual pressure, right? Like, when someone gives a definition, you'd actually usually test whether it overgenerates or undergenerates. Like, where if it includes things it should exclude, it would be overgenerating naturally. And if it excludes things it should include, it would be undergenerating. If like his definition of a fucking position is something like a claim towards a topic, then it naturally would be overgenerating very massively, as it would capture reports and hypotheticals and quotations and even fucking self-reports, etc., etc. See, obviously these are all claims towards a topic in some loose sense. I think you can agree with that. But they aren't automatically positions in the dialectical sense, are they? Like, it just seems to me that either his definition includes too much, or he has to add further conditions, as I said in the actual fucking topic. But you do understand, Shin, that once he adds those further conditions, he's actively admitting the original definition was incomplete, right? Like, you do know that, right? That's pretty much the right refutation of his proposed definition. But like, since you wanna contend with my win, I think I'm gonna go a little deeper with that as well. Even towards a topic isn't actually a real semantic relation. You know that, right? It's more so a vague metaphor, as a statement can be towards a topic by mentioning it or endorsing it or denying it or questioning it, etc. And those are very different relations with very different pragmatic forces. A definition can't actually rely on towards unless it specifies which relation is relevant. Like, does a position require some sort of endorsement, maybe an assertion? Hell, I don't know, belief, maybe you want to rub that shit. There are many such questions, other that I won't really be mentioning due to our lack of time. But they certainly aren't going to be decorative. They're the conditions that determine whether the concept is actually defined. Like, a more serious accountant have to say something like, say that a position is a proposition or a set of propositions that a subject would endorse or is going to be dialectically committed to in context as an answer to a disputed question. Like, that sort of account at least starts to distinguish a position from a sentence or a proposition, among other shit of the sort. It introduces the subject and the content, as well as the context, the endorsement, and the dialectical role of that position. His account didn't really do that. It actively left the entire concept afloat, between arbitrary semantics as well as pragmatics, and for the bridge between them, honestly, I want to see something that's good faith papers. Fucking bullshit. It was out of bullshit, man. Like, that is exactly why I press the distinction between first order claims and meta-definitional adequacy. When he just seemed to act as though once he made a first order definitional claim, the question I asked him was somehow like, answered in some way, that he fulfilled something. Like, the existence of a first order claim isn't the same as its validity. Naturally, if someone says that knowledge is when you feel certain, he's going to be making a first order definitional claim, but we can still ask whether that definition fails, because certainty is neither necessary nor sufficient for knowledge. Likewise, if someone says a position is a claim towards a topic, as is our example here, we can ask whether that account is necessary or sufficient, or maybe too broad, etc., 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 as what I did. Now, you simply say in the verdict that he had an informal definition, and so he satisfied the burden, but that presupposes the very point being disputed, man. It assumes that the candidate definition already qualifies as a definition, and that's incredibly circular, and now it begs the fucking question. Like, the debate wasn't about whether the words existed. It was about whether the words successfully fixed the concept, and you cannot answer that by pointing to the existence of the words. Also, the concession point you had is utterly pathetic, man. Like, genuinely, utterly fucking pathetic. Like, you treated my reference to his definition as if I conceded he had a successful one. That's a confusion between, referring to your proposed object and endorsing its validity. Like, if I say your proof is invalid, I'm not gonna be conceding that it proves the theorem. Like, I think that's very clear. No shit, no? Like, I'm just gonna be referring to the attempted proof as the object of criticism. If I say your argument is circular, I am not conceding that it is sound. I am more so identifying the argument being attacked. Likewise, if I say some shit like, your definition doesn't clarify, I'm not going to be conceding any definitional adequacy. I'm simply saying his attempted definition fails to perform its clarificatory function. Naturally, that's not fucking pedantry. That's the whole point, because a proposed definition can be the target of critique exactly because it's only proposed. Calling it your definition is ordinary shorthand for your attempted definition or your candidate definition. That was what I was saying. You can't turn that into a concession without collapsing the difference between a proposal and its success. Also, just a question here. Like, genuinely, what the fuck do you mean by subjectivism? If the premise is supposed to be, it's just supposed to mean, does Ryomeguna subjectively feel like he has a definition? Then the topic just becomes fucking meaningless. Naturally, it would just become a question about his internal mental state instead of the actual adequacy of his account. But yes, sadly for your definition, for everything you're fucking saying, sadly for you as a person, especially in this topic, that isn't just a private sensation of meaning. It's a semantic rule, and it has to be intelligible enough for others to apply. That's what a definition is. Like, even stipulative definitions aren't free from standards. Hell, a stipulative definition can choose its meaning, but it still has to fix a meaning. Like, if I stipulate that a triangle is just going to be something that has some shape-ish thing, basically, that's not really a good stipulation, because it doesn't actually establish a stable rule of use. It is far too indeterminate. That claim to subjectivism outright shows why your verdict is so honestly fucking retarded. Because you're treating private intention as though it gives you some sort of semantic validity. That's just fucking textbook retardation. Like, meaning in a debate isn't actually exhausted by private intention, as the speaker's intended use has to be articulated in a way that fixes criteria. Otherwise, there is no shared object for adjunction. Now, you probably won't track jack shit of this, but like, a position actually has a pragmatic dimension as well. Like, it's not only about propositional content as a position something one can defend or abandon or modify or fucking concede or be held to, and etc., etc. And that just means that the positionhood invokes some sort of normative commitment within the discourse. Naturally, a proposition becomes someone's position not just because it exists, nor just because it's related to a topic, but because the speaker stands in the right relation to it. That relation isn't actually captured by a claim toward the topic. Without some sort of endorsement or commitment, the definition cannot separate my position from a view I mention or quote or summarize or assume temporarily, etc., all of those other cases. That's why somewhat retarded accusations of me or red herring are very fucking misplaced. Like, I was just asking him for what relation would convert the simplest of content into a position. And that's the central explanatory burden, though. Like, if that retard, fucking obnoxious cunt, Charles or Ryomeguna, can't answer whether the relevant relations, belief or an assertion or endorsement and, etc., he hasn't defined jack shit. And I'm not done just yet, as I have a few categorical issues as well. See, a claim would belong primarily to the level of assertion or content, while a position belongs more naturally to the level of stance or commitment. And trivially, these can overlap. But it's just as trivial that they aren't identical. Treating every claim as a position would collapse a lot of distinctions, say between saying X and entertaining X or reporting X, for example. That collapses exactly what my critique initially targeted, and the verdict never even begins to address it. A better judge, I would say, would have had to construct the definition and indest it. Like, you could have said he defines the position as an endorsed claim answering a disputed question. And then the actual topic would just become whether he established some sort of endorsement or answerhood. Or you could have said, the stances of the topic only required a candidate definition and an adequate one. But then you'd have to admit my arguments were refuted in any way, and then we just ruled out. Because you seem to misinterpret the positions. What you cannot do, in fact, is treat an adequacy critique as a red herring while actively backing up the adequacy of the definition. Like, also, if I can read that, I'm gonna be a bit petty here. You give that verdict a fucking notice, and that makes it so much worse. Because I just believe it implies that the verdict thinks my objections were obviously irrelevant, and they were very obviously not. They were direct attacks on the semantic and pragmatic conditions of the concept. Like, let's go back for a second. I challenge the definition's intention, its extension, its sufficient conditions, its fucking individuation criteria, its treatment of endorsement, its category placement, and its overgeneration. And naturally, those are all exactly the deep points the definitional debate would turn on. If anything, like, the verdict, the one operating on the wrong level here, as it stays at the surface level, the fucking bare bones bullshit at this topic, that informal bullshit was uttered and never actually descends into whether it was defined. Like, he did have the candidate definition, no shit, I can grant that. But I just challenge whether it amounted to a definition. As a definition must apply a rule of application. It must tell us what counts as an instance and what doesn't. It must distinguish the target concept from its neighboring concept. It doesn't have, it must not overgenerate into cases that clearly are not positions, and damn well must leave the relevant relation unspecified. His account failed all of these tests. Not even one did he fucking do right, man. And your verdict does not show otherwise in any way. You called it, also you said something about a fucking hollow man? Whatever the hell that means. Well, like, I didn't detect anything that was weaker than his claim. You do know that, right? Like, I tested his own wording, as if he says a position is a claim towards a topic, then I'm very much entitled to ask whether reports or hypotheticals or quotations or fucking self-reports and attribute, all of those shit, like all that shit I said earlier, would count in that. And if they do, then the definition would be too broad. If they don't, then it's just being a claim towards a topic and it's not going to be sufficient at all. Also, that's just going to be a dilemma generated by his account and not any sort of distortion of it that I made. You called it a red herring, but I did introduce a different issue. I stayed on what it means to have a definition of the term. Naturally, right now, I'm just only recapping for the judge. The question of whether the alleged definition defines is external to debate. It is the fucking debate. You invoked informality, but informality doesn't actually erase the need for criteria. You invoked subjectivism, but private perception doesn't give you the meaning you need. And you treated my reference to his definition as a concession, but the reference isn't at all endorsement. You treated a candidate definition as a successful one, but that's the exact distinction on the dispute, and your verdict answers the weakest possible version of the issue, whether he said anything shaped like a definition. But I was never contesting that. I was contesting whether what he said had definitional force. I was contesting whether it could serve as a criterion for positionhood. I was contesting whether it separated positions from mere claims or propositions or assertions or reports, etc., etc., etc. I've said that shit like 20 times now. Your verdict isn't intellectually serious, and honestly, neither are you if you think it like it's in any way valid. Like, in a definitional debate, conceptual position isn't gonna be irrelevant naturally. That's mere fucking philosophical blasphemy. Like, goddamn, nigga. Anyways, You treated my critique of the definition's failure as if it were off topic, but naturally, as I said, blah 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 blah, all of that shit. I think the judge can decide on that shit. That is exactly why your verdict's idiotic and why you're a fucking retard. You fucking retard. I'm gonna say this shit 3 times. Fucking retard. And just to point out formality here, when you want to make such an absurd claim in your verdict, please at least realize your own faults and fix them. Like, this is a fucking joke. Anyways, man, you can go ahead and speak. I'm gonna mute myself.
Alright, thank God. What the fuck? I already wanted to speak like many times, dude, because of the rules that toxic rule said. But can you just clarify this one point for me, please? In like questioning and sort of. But you did see that it was a definition, yes or no? And like in formality, and like when you specified in your talking point right now.
Do you wanna? Alright. So you asked me if I saw it as a definition. I already said that I saw it as a candidate definition, which I made the distinction between that and actual definition I was asking for. That is the answer to your question. Now, do you want to add anything, or do you want to like say something else?
Alright, that's fine. You clarified anyways. I'll start. Let's start. Sure. Okay, you really talked a lot. Like, a lot. Like, okay.
20 minutes, yeah.
First, one of your... Wait, where are you speaking?
I said 20 minutes. I'm not cutting you off. I spoke a lot. You can go ahead.
Alright, session. Okay. Alright, man. Come on. Fuck. Okay, that's a concession here. Anyways, since I already won at this point, can we actually
hold on? No. I just want to clarify one thing. You said you would start. No. Hold on. Since you said it's a concession, I want to clarify one thing. In the stipulation of the topic, in the stipulation of the actual topic, I said there would be repercussions of me cutting you off, in which I would be cutting you off in the verdict. If you want to say something right now, you can go ahead. I will fucking mute myself. But if you want to argue, you can go for right the fucking head. I didn't cut you off. I said one thing, not in reference to your argument. I just made a fucking like claim about a joke. I never said anything about your position. That's not cutting you off, as I waited until you answered my question, and you haven't really started arguing until then. Naturally, if you want to argue now in good faith, then go ahead. Now, you say that's a concession. I'm going to remind you of this position that is on recording. I only said there would be consequences of cutting somebody off as they're arguing. You want to back the fuck off. Like, the fact you said we're arguing when I cut you off.
Order that lowers your voice right now. So everything you scream, yeah, you're cooked, son.
Huh?
Alright, let's speaking. You can shut the fuck up.
Go ahead.
Okay, one of your points is that your criticism is pointless, essentially. And your examples you stated in here are quite really repetitive. The premise is still met by true. The premise application is still met by true. Webster, actually, which I'll clarify right now. Hold on. I did prepare something here. And also, one of your points is conceptually it wasn't met by, right? That it wasn't met by. But this is wrong. Because the premise, again, you did not track the premise that it's whether he had a definition for it. It's whether he had a definition for it. It's not whether it's the correct definition for it. You're a fucking dumb fuck. And I'll just clarify why exactly. Hold on. There's a lot to clarify, actually. So I'm just going to send this. Should be screenshots. Yep, okay. Already got copied. Okay. I'm just gonna speak well. Alright. Alright, should be there. Sent. I'm gonna talk about it, of course. Like, in the VC itself, so a lot of guys would have a point for it. But all the screenshots will be sent. That's relevant to it. Okay. I send it. Can you see it? Okay. Alright. Source. Okay. Formal definitions. I'm sure you were aware what the definition was, whether it had a definition for it. I mean, that's exactly what the premise is all about. Whether you're arguing that he had a definition for it, but you literally just mistracked this and didn't track the premise itself. Like, you do realize that, right? But you didn't realize that because the formal definition you tried to argue in the entire debate is fucking diabolically incoherent to the fucking premise itself. Like, you do realize that, right? It was irrelevant to the point itself. Because the premise, again, I'm going to clarify it again for you since you failed to track it since you're a fucking retard. That whether he had a definition for it, it isn't how the definition was formed. You do realize it, right? It isn't how correct the definition was. All he had to do is provide a definition for it. You do realize that, right? I mean, all I could read you, because for our audience, of course. Formal definition. A formal definition consists of three parts: the term, the part of speech to which it belongs, such as the noun or the verb, and all the traits or characteristics that are specific to the term. The dictionary is filled with formal definition, but it is not the only place where you find them. Writers often include formal definitions when they are writing about something that may be unfamiliar to their readers. In textbooks, you may find the formal definition terms listed at the beginning, at the end of a chapter, or the glossary, or which is in many dictionary terms relevant to the text. Blah, blah, blah. Formal definition example. Freedom. Part of freedom, none. The power or right to speak or think as one without hindrance or restraint. And for the premise number 2, informal definitions, which I'm arguing the case that for Ryomeguna, which I'll clarify first for the main point later, is that in an example of informal definition, the writer uses known words or examples to explain an unknown term. These definitions may be synonymous or autonomous, introduced by, or in other words, or like. Informal definition example. Freedom, also referred to as a liberty or independence. Independence is a state where people which they're free to think and do whatever they please. Also, again, this is my main focal point, which you failed to track. Guna's definition was supported by informal definition 2, section that he used in the debate. Webster specifically validating his claim. Drop the S's below. You can read that if all you want, which is exactly what he said anyways in the debate. And his position, a viewpoint adopted and held to. And if you're so lazy to the point you're not checking all the sources, you can check the screenshots if you want. And I clarify this. Okay, I'm going to read his response to it. What site did you use for a definition? And he said, end quote, Merriam-Webster. Alright, which step? It's 2, okay? Read B in that case. Wait, I sent some irrelevant screenshots to it. Yo, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. Alright. Yo, I apologize for that. Yeah, anyways, the point was that reviewing his definition, in which one of here, which you conceded to it, anyways, that you misunderstood his premise to begin with. Okay, and for the premise itself, which he had a definition for it, anyways, rejected entirely because it is whether he had a definition for it. Had the definition for it. You do understand it, right? This is why you're going on a hollow man fallacy, which I mentioned by the way before. That you try to explain what hollow man fallacy is exactly, but I don't know why you're exactly questioning this, because this is one of the main focal points of strawman fallacy. Type of fallacy where they argue positive point that it's a red herring entirely, albeit creating a new point. But it's entirely just a red herring, but a better word for it, essentially. And wait, I'm actually gonna start deleting this one. Dude, they already saw it, dude. Fuck, you can't even delete it. Holy shit. This is why I like deleting all the screenshots before, like, yeah. Alright, that's fine. Form definitions. Gonna definition is worded with this. I'm gonna send a scan for that first. Okay. We're providing that. So, his definition is supported by some viewpoint of a certain topic, which is exactly corresponding to the topic, to the definition that I said before. The informal definition that he said in this case is the position, point of viewpoint adopted and held to. You can check the sources, by the way, for that. And which validates his point entirely to the fucking debate. So, for your information, also, the subjectivism premise is the also one of my key points. Exactly what I keep corresponding to the verdict itself. Since you did not understand exactly what I exactly meant by that. The fucking entire debate is based on a fucking subjective premise, dude. Do you not understand that? Like, I'm gonna read this right now. Is subjectivism premise is the philosophical position that our mental activity and individual perception are the fundamental basis of our reality, knowledge, and value. It asserts that the truth is not an objective, independent, absolute, but rather something created or heavily shaped by the conscious mind. And which is exactly what I said. He had a definition for it. Whether he had a definition for it. That's exactly what I'm exactly entailing in this case. Like, you do not understand that. Like, it's the most simplest thing. This is what you failed to track in your fucking debate. Like, everything you said in the fucking debate is so fucking relevant, dude. It's so fucking relevant. Like, come on. All you've been doing is arguing for a relevant point that the formal definition is consisting of the term, the part of the speech to where it belongs, such as noun, which is exactly what you conceded to this entire your talking point earlier, which is exactly what you're presupposing a formal definition, which is exactly what is exactly relevant to the informal definition that he posited. You did not attack his definition at all. You did not disprove his definition being false at all. In fact, you even agreed that he had a definition for it, in which exactly I'm going to repeat in this point again. Like, you're fucking stupid, and that's exactly clear as fuck. Like, here, your definition. I'm gonna quote you, by the way. Your definition don't give a shit as far as determined condition for precision, dude. Your definition, you exactly, corresponding to this definition, you view it as a definition, and that's what exactly matters in this case. You trapped yourself exactly in this case in this debate. You're a fucking dumb fuck. You might have to, just retry again the premise exactly, but you did not exactly do that. You didn't specify exactly the exact premise. You didn't say whether he had a correct definition that works or an application, and even then, it's still applicable to begin with, because you know why? Because there's a still site that supports his definition to begin with, which is exactly what I am trying to argue for you. Like, come on. Okay. I think we're done anyways. Yeah, I'm done here. You can speak. Whatever's.
Well, ignoring the 300 million dumb fucks you just dropped, I'm just gonna say one thing there. All of that I'll just say. You ain't track jack shit of it, because you just went and said that he made an informal definition. Yes, I'm aware of that. I already addressed it. I'm gonna remind you what I said. Now, I believe I can recreate the wording of what I said. Hold on, let me just think about it 1 second. Now, regardless, I already talked about an informal definition. Yeah, I think you can track that, right? Well, it's on recording. I already talked about why it being an informal definition wouldn't do jack shit, quote unquote. I said that an informal definition would just not be any issue here if it actually succeeded in fixing the relevant concept, correct? You can track that on recording. I already gave you 2 examples of why an informal definition that is not actually qualifying as a definition by explaining the concept around it, it's not fixing the relevant concept in any way. It's not really fucking going through with the tests I did for it. I already gave you 6 of those tests, you fucking retard. And all of that shit you just said is a first order claim about if he had a subjective definition. That's fine with me. That's not what I was asking him. You know what a second order claim is? A meta claim? Regardless of all that shit. Now, I will not really be talking anymore. You can go ahead, drop your response. We could call it after that. I think this debate is meaningless. You can judge.
You already conceded to this anyways, because you talked in when I was talking. Okay. Anyways, yeah, okay. I can agree with the verdict, I guess, and we're being the judge. But I'll rhetoricate again my point that you conceded to it, and you misunderstood exactly the premise, which is exactly what I tried to posit here in this debate, and try to argue again in this case. And every judges that you posited or whatever the fuck, I'm gonna start debating all of them, because all of their fucking verdicts seemingly has the same verdicts. They're fucking so similar, dude. They're so similar, dude. In so many ways. It's as if someone told to have the same verdict. Come on, dude. Make it not obvious, bro. You trapped yourself in this case, bro. You trapped yourself in this case whether he had a definition for it. It's not whether he had a correct definition for it. Also, just to clarify, it doesn't matter if his definition is also incorrect or correct. You just didn't understand what subjectivism is to begin with. It's whether he had a definition for it, dude. And I'll keep repeating to this that you failed to track the fucking premise, dude. Like, holy shit. Like, this is an easy piece of cake debate ever. And I doubt Ruru would fucking let you win in this, guys, dude. You're so fucking embarrassing. You're such a fucking retard, dude. Like, I am so sorry that you had to fucking, had to debate this. Like, it's so simple, dude. We're done here.
I agree, we are done here. Regardless, I will really be taking any sort of position on what you just said, based on the insults and such. As we're mid-topic, I don't really give flying fuck about random insults. But you just said that you don't think Reamer is going to be giving me a verdict. That's very fine. I can ask Reamer. I have the recording right now. You got a recording? You can unmute yourself now. The debate is over. We can just speak normally without talking sick. You have your recording?
Alright. Like, okay. I'm also gonna send him the recording that.
So you have your recording, yeah.
Yeah. And when you started screaming, you broke the rule that you considered to it. It's at a confession.
No, actually, I mean, I can certainly show him the entire verdict. The only reason I was speaking back then and quote unquote screaming was because you said it's a concession, so I just went informal naturally. Because you said I was breaking the rules. I already want to clarify why I was not breaking the rules. Naturally, if you wanna like talk about
a question and you answered it and you muted it.
Yeah, I did mute.
I don't be fucking dishonest.
Yeah, I did. I already said that. I did. I already said that. I already explained that. You said you talked for a lot. You talked for a lot. First of all, your mic. You said you talked for a lot, and then I said, yeah, for 20 minutes of you and myself. You took that as me cutting you off.
Track everything.
Right. You wanna like? Right. Hold on, just a second. You wanna just appeal to Riri directly? Like, oh, you're flying, fuck that.
You're a fucking idiot.
Again. Oh my god. This nigga, bro. Oh my god, nigga. Get you in there. Hold on a second. Yo, rhetorically, got that recording on full? Alright, you can send it here then. I'm gonna go get mine.